Ready to serve!
What's up everybody, Gale here, and welcome to Dragon Age Inquisition. We're going to have build videos for every class and specialization on the channel, and the first one we are going to go over is the best mage specialization in the game, the Knight Enchanter. This build has been tested and is intended for Nightmare difficulty, but will excel in all difficulties. Mage is definitely nerfed quite a bit from the first two Dragon Ages, and has become somewhat of a more supportive class overall. But this specialization breaks those barriers and turns you into an unkillable one-man army. The way you will play this build, you'll be an in-your-face, spell-spamming, sword-swinging, unkillable menace to society. This specialization is currently one of the best specializations in the entire game, and it was even nerfed by BioWare a short while after release. So you can only imagine how powerful it once was. So without further ado, let's get into the leveling guide. The early game for the first 11 levels before you acquire your specialization will be played as a normal mage, sitting in the backline casting spells like Chain Lightning, Immolate, and Energy Barrage. These abilities will be your core damage rotation until you obtain your specialization. The nice thing about these three spells is that they all do great damage and have a large area of effect. If you have a proper tank taking aggro and grouping the enemies up, you will consistently hit 3 to 4 enemies with every spell you cast. It will also be beneficial that Chain Lightning covers electric damage for you, Immolate will cover fire, and Energy Barrage will deal damage based on your staff type. Being able to have 3 different damage types early in the game will help immensely as you will encounter targets that are resistant or immune to some of your spells. You will also grab Fire Mine and Fade Step before level 11, which certainly can be useful, but as a backline mage these will have limited use cases. These abilities are more preparing you for when you become a Knight Enchanter. Fire Mine and Fade Step will both be two of the most crucial abilities in this build, being where a majority of your damage and mobility will come from, but we will cover them later in the video when we get to the playstyle. For equipment, in the early game, it is almost always best to craft gear in this game, as finding good gear is hard to come by. For armor, just craft whichever gives you the most defense, and for weapons, the most offense. In the later game, this will change as all we really care about is damage, which we will cover later on. But the early game is the only hard part of this game, and being tankier helps a lot in surviving it. For Mage, prioritize crafting gear that gives you the most offense and utility slots, and fill those with boosts to your crit chance, crit damage, willpower, and magic. After we reach Skyhold, we will be able to acquire the Knight Enchanter spec. If you're wondering how to acquire it, there is a video on the channel detailing how to complete all steps in the quest. Now that we have obtained the Knight Enchanter specialization, we're going to go over the skill tree to talk about what makes this specialization unique and what spells define it. The first skill we have in the tree is Spirit Blade. This spell is a melee ranged ability that creates a sword from thin air to swipe at the enemy. It does pretty mediocre damage, but is very effective versus enemy barriers and guards, which can be helpful. It generates charges from using other abilities that make it deal more damage, so that is why we also combine it with other spammable spells like Arcane Barrage. We will also be grabbing the upgrade that makes it so you can deflect abilities using Spirit Blade, because it's just cool and makes you feel like a Jedi Master. It's a very cheap and spammable spell, and we will be in the enemy's face, so we'll be using it quite often. Next are the 3 passives that define the Knight Enchanter, and makes you completely unkillable. Combat Clarity, Fade Shield, and Night Protector. Combat Clarity provides you with much needed mana regeneration when in close proximity to enemies. This further feeds into the melee playstyle alongside the next 2 passives. Fade Shield is the Knight Enchanter. Knight Enchanter is nothing without this ability. In this build I covered the exact levels without respecking. However, if you can't wait to become a real Knight Enchanter immediately upon obtaining the specialization, I would respec and tell you at the very least get this passive. Fade Shield gives us a barrier for 30% of our damage dealt, so in combination with our very spammable spells in Arcane Barrage, Fire Mine, and Spirit Blade, we'll have a full barrier nearly permanently. Night Protector will just make our barriers that we create decay slower, making you tankier for longer. Fade Cloak, Veiled Riposte, and Disruption Field are the other abilities in the tree. We don't really prioritize these abilities much as they are just not that good. We get them later on in the leveling guide, but if you wanted to skip over them, it would not affect the build in any way. Resurgence is the focus ability in this tree. Being able to resurrect and heal the party is obviously very strong, but with our builds we shouldn't have to worry about anyone dying in the first place. Now it's finally time to show how to do the final levels for this build, and get to exactly how to play the class to its maximum potential. The goal of this class is to be in the face of the enemy, being a melee mage by using Fade Step to dash into the battle, spamming Arcane Barrage, Spirit Blade, and dropping Flame Mines on cooldown. Spamming abilities will give us more charges for our Spirit Blade, giving us even more damage. For Flaming Mines, we will make sure to have the upgraded version that gives us 3 mines directly in front of us. This will make it one of the highest damaging abilities in the game, and gives us a huge burst, and the Lasting Mines gives us additional control on the battlefield. The loop of the build is that the abilities deal such high damage and are on such low cooldowns that it keeps your barrier from Fade Shield pretty much always full, making it so you cannot take any damage. For armor on this build, we will be crafting a Superior Skirmisher Hat and Superior Battle Mage Armor, as those give us the best slots to give us more offensive capabilities. We will want to utilize those to give us added critical chance and critical damage, alongside any other offensive stats you wish to slot in. The ring, amulet, and belt will be on screen now. Those will all be acquired from various locations and cannot be crafted. Finally, we have the weapon. This is a slightly controversial topic when it comes to Knight Enchanter because of the Blade of Tidarian. The Blade of Tidarian is a melee sword that mages can use, and it fits perfectly with this playstyle. It even has a bug that allows it to cast 24 projectiles from Arcane Barrage instead of 12, if you give it a different elemental rune from its core damage type, which obviously gives you much more damage from that ability. Additionally, those extra 12 projectiles can trigger any on-hit effects you may have crafted on your equipment. This should all seemingly make the decision easy. However, there are a couple stats, mostly an Encore and Wrath of Levias, both of which can be crafted, that actually deal more damage faster and more fluidly. The staffs actually have higher DPS even with all of the added factors the Blade of Tidarian has. But, if you're looking at this build, I will assume it's because you're interested in fully playing as a melee mage playstyle, in which case, go with the Blade of Tidarian. I'm a big believer in class fantasy above maximum power personally, and if I wanted to use a staff, I would just play my favorite mage spec, the Rift Mage. With all of that being said, it is completely optional and the staff certainly does feel more fluid. As always with my build videos, there will be a link in the description to a full leveling guide. Let me know what you think about the build in the comments, and please click the like button down below to support these Dragon Age videos. I will see you all next time.